Empowering high-performing software teams using the clear measure way here on Programming with Palermo.
You are programming with Palermo. You deliver software. You need to move fast, deliver quality, and run your software with confidence. Stay tuned for timeless solutions, simple methods, and topics that will propel you forward. And now your host, lifelong programmer, author, teacher, coach, Christian, and charismatic speaker, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome back to Programming with Palermo. My name is Jeffrey Palermo, your host, and today this video is specifically for software architects, people who are leading software engineering teams. And if you're not a software architect, don't check out. If you have visions of later in your career leading a software team, you may want to stick around. But we're going to talk about empowering your team. And we're going to talk about it using the essential elements that are in the clear measure way. The clear measure way is a methodology used and developed at Clear Measure to guide software teams, to empower software teams that are delivering fantastic software, establishing quality, achieving stability, increasing speed. And specifically, the Clear Measure way empowers not just the team, but it empowers you, the software architect who is responsible for that team, for leading that team. So stick around, lots of great content. Let's get into it. For those of you just getting started with the Clear Measure way, this is going to be a very quick overview. We have other content that goes deeply into each of these topics, but this is going to be the highest level overview. We're going to give the context for who this is for, our vision for you and your team, and talk about achieving the rare success in this industry when there's so many failed software projects. And then we're going to go through how to establish quality, achieve stability, increase your speed, and then help you to lead your team. And our vision for you is that building on all the advancements in our industry over the last 20, 30, 40 plus years, the Clear Measure way simplifies and synthesizes known practices in a manner that any software team can implement. And I just want to give you a blessing right off the bat. You have what it takes to lead your team. God made you for this. And by implementing what is in the Clear Measure way, you will empower your team to establish quality, achieve that stability, and increase the speed. I know you can do it, and we are here to guide. So let's go through the different areas. First, achieving success, unfortunately, is rare in our industry. Only 17% of projects succeed. 17, that's it. About half of them flat out are considered failures. And then some of them finish, but they're over budget. They kind of disappoint. And only 17% of projects, these are studies just in the last few years, only 17% are actually considered success. So first off, resolve to be in that rare 17% of projects that succeed.
Programming with Palermo is brought to you by Clear Measure, a software architecture company that empowers .NET teams to be self-sufficient, moving fast, delivering quality, and running their software with confidence in Azure. If your team has a project that's too important to be delayed or derailed, Clear Measure can help while keeping your team in the driver's seat and growing in capability. Click on clearmeasure.com for more information. If you are an architect or .NET engineer aspiring to become an architect, check out clearmeasure.com/careers. Now, back to the show.
The team rises and falls on leadership. The team rises and falls on your leadership. And so work for a clear understanding of where you are and the wisdom to guide your team through. And then another way of thinking that we exhort you to have is to measure your actuals and your progress. At Clear Measure, we are huge on clarity, on helping you see where you are, see the future clearly, where you're going, lay out a vision for what you want to achieve, and then measure not only where you are, but how you are progressing down the road. And so our name says it all, clear measure. And we want you to have that clarity and to measure your progress along the way until you get to the finish line. And so um, you as the leader, the clear measure way includes tools and principles for helping you establish a vision and a strategy for your team. And then help for your own professional development as the architect. And by the way, whatever your actual title is, you're the software leader of a team. And so we're just going to use the word architect to refer to. And there's so many other titles that you may have. You're leading a software engineering team. Okay. You are the architect. You have some number of software developers, software engineers under your charge, and you need to get some software built, delivered, changed, upgraded, whatever the project may be. You yourself need professional development because everything rises and falls on leadership. So your leadership is hugely important. Another thing that you're going to have to do is to have a constant rhythm of reading and study. Okay. That's besides your own professional development plan, just constant reading and study and funneling that into the team. And then for the team itself, we're going to help you stand up a team scorecard. There's so many other business professions that have some type of scorecard dashboard, set of metrics and thresholds. And unfortunately, so many software teams across the whole industry don't actually have a scorecard for the team. Some might have dashboards for the actual software in production, and you absolutely need that. But the team needs a scorecard. And on it, you need measures, but it's important to trend and normalize those measures. Maybe per line of code, per team member, per week, per day. You have a certain number, a measure that you're tracking, but then you need to trend it, line graphs, and you need to normalize it. And so it's always going to be per something. You're going to put a denominator there. And so you need a good scorecard. Now, let's get into the huge pillars, and that is establishing quality, achieving stability, and increasing speed. So the first one is establish quality. You need to prioritize quality over speed. We believe that quality comes first, that we can't achieve speed unless we have quality. We've gone into the dynamics of this on other videos about how teams who try to go after speed, try to balance quality, allow some corners to be cut with quality, and then fixing problems saps a certain amount of the capacity of the team, causing speed to go down. And then the cycle repeats over and over. And then over time, and sometimes a short period of time, so much of the team's capacity for developing features and making changes to the software is devoted to fixing things, and the team doesn't have quality or speed. Okay. And so the principles in the clear measure way around establishing quality are to prevent defects and make the software always working. On the preventing defects front, consider an escaped defect to be a process failure. An escape defect is one that gets to production, that actually has some type of impact. Consider that a process failure, that whatever practices you put in place for on the quality front for preventing defects, they actually had a failure. We actually had a miss. We didn't catch one. And so we need to go back and look at our process and change something so that that type of defect will be caught next time around. And so we prevent it from getting out to production. We prevent it from going out to production. And some of the engineering practices around quality are, and we're not going to go into these in detail here. We go into them in a lot of detail in other videos. Separation of concerns. This is good old object-oriented programming. Test-driven development in all its various layers. Continuous integration. Collective code ownership and collective test ownership. Static analysis of any type of code file. And then finally, checklist-driven pull requests. Now, these are just the minimum suggested engineering practices around the quality pillar. In your situation, you are going to choose to add additional practices, and we expect that. But the final principle, always be working, Um, it's kind of like the Hippocratic Oath. Doctors are charged to first do no harm. Same thing in software. When we're making a change, we want to first don't break anything. Don't destabilize anything. Don't cause anything to have a hiccup. Whatever change we make, we want it to be small, incremental, and keep the software working. And so the measures around this area that we need to put on our scorecard are measures that give us visibility and clarity into the amount of defects that we found that actually got through, and then the number of implicit defects. So if we find a defect, we're going to put it into our work tracking system as a bug or as a defect, and it's going to be there in a formal manner. But there's also implicit defects. And anytime you're using a Kanban style process where you have work or issues that go through different statuses, sometimes we move a status backwards in the process. Well, we moved it backwards because we thought that we were done enough to move it forward in the process, and we found something missing, so we move it back. That's an implicit defect. Those moving backward, those are important to count because we also want to minimize those. Those are harbingers of the risk that we have of a defect escaping into production into our customer base. The next pillar is to achieve stability, okay? And stability is specifically in production, in the customer environment. We want to be absolutely stable. We want the software to do the job for the customers the way the customers need it done. And so we want to minimize undeployed software. That is branches that have code changes that haven't been moved out to production. Maybe they're in testing of some sort. Whatever the status, that is some type of change where we don't know the stability characteristics. It hasn't actually been put out to production. So we want to minimize that. That's your work in progress, work in process. And lots of other processes have talked about minimizing WIP. Kanban has talked about minimizing WIP. And so many of these principles come from prior art. We're pulling them together and synthesizing them. Another principle around achieving stability that we suggest is to have a specific focus on preventing production issues first, and then correcting production issues quickly. All right, those might sound simple, but they're huge. Now, on the prevention part, we want to know the number of production issues that actually happen and the severity. Now, obviously, a hard drive or storage warning of some sort, it's going to have a low severity because the customers aren't even going to notice. Okay, I understand. But there's going to be production issues that are business disruptions. Those are Sev 1 issues, severity 1, highest severity. The business actually was disrupted because of this production issue. But either way, we want to track them. Then the correcting the production issues quickly, we want to know what our MTTR is, that the mean time to resolution, because we need to know what our average MTTR is now. And we want to decide, are we happy with what it is now, or are we unhappy and we take some action to improve it? And so there's practices that go into this as well. On the prevention front, we want to just to get to the table, we want to automate our DevOps from day one, so that whether we're creating a new microservice, a new full-on software application, we go to production day one. Even if the customers aren't ready, we build it out and we are ready to go, deploying changes to production, and then we're constantly iterating it from that. So we're constantly iterating, and we get from 0 to the point where we can iterate immediately. And then we focus on small releases. We make use of automated deployments, formal release candidates with numbers and names and release packages, low maintenance environments, intentionally designing low maintenance in. And we talk about other videos, how that happens. Runtime automated health checks. So we ask the actual software in the environment, are you healthy? Production-like pre-production environments, so there's no variance. Explicit secrets management, so that we keep our keys secure. And then when we do have issues, there's other practices to enable us to correct these very, very quickly. Centralized logging, custom application metrics and events, distributed tracing, application performance monitoring tool with an operations dashboard, and then anomaly alerts, emergency alarms, and a formal support desk with trouble tickets. And we track those. So help desk, trouble tickets, there's various terms for that. All right. The third pillar is increasing speed. And now that we have the ability to maintain our quality and know what our stability is and keep it up there, then we can actually turn to having the team go faster, which is what we wanted at the beginning. But we have to establish quality, we have to achieve stability, and only then can we assess and know what our actual speed is, and then take action to increase our speed. And so be honest about where your team's speed is at the moment, and then where you want it to be. Assess your team's speed capacity right now with the number of people you have, how many issues are being accomplished per week. And then from a process perspective, you want to lay out all of your work on a Kanban style board of some sort with the statuses, and shift your bottlenecks upstream. When you identify a bottleneck, and we talk in other videos deeply about bottlenecks, you want to identify them and then modify your process so that bottleneck moves upstream. And you keep on doing that until the bottleneck moves all the way up to the customer that you're serving, so that the decision-making on what to do actually takes the most time. And by the time a decision is made, your team is just ready to go and cranking things out. You also, something that helps with the bottlenecks and assessing the team's capacity is to break down the work to issues that are the size of one man-day of effort. And we talk more deeply in other videos about that as well. And then finally, our final principle in this area is to simplify. Minimize the work needed to deliver the feature. Now, over 20 years ago, the extreme programming process kind of phrased it as simplify, maximize the amount of work not done. It's a very similar concept. And so what you want to measure for your speed is what the desired issues per week is. How fast do you want the team to go? A goal. And then measure the actual issues delivered per week for your team. And then you also want to measure the time a particular issue sits in a particular status. And with your Kanban style work tracking, if you have different columns for different statuses and you move an issue card across the board, then you are actually tracking in that system how long it sits in that status. And then you can quickly see where your bottlenecks are, and you can analyze that and make some tuning and make some adjustments. And so the practices, the engineering practices that help you with speed, the minimum suggested that we have, again, there's any number that you could add to this, but there's 4 that is the minimum, just tickets to the game. You need an incremental architecture process, and you need to plan your incremental changes to your architecture. The venerable 4+1 architecture process works really well for that, but your architecture planning needs to be incremental. Second is the Kanban style work tracking that I've mentioned. The third is breaking down the work. Now, a lot of you have probably heard of pair programming. We suggest something a little bit earlier in the process, and we call it pair partitioning. That is, have 2 people instead, because pair programming didn't catch on across our industry like some people wanted it to. It just has. I'm not going to talk about why it has or why it has not. It's a good practice, but it hasn't caught on. But breaking down the work, you can have one person break down the work, but you get a lot of the benefit from pair programming for a little bit lower cost by pair partitioning. Have 2 people break down larger features into individual issues where each of the issues can reasonably be finished with one man-day of effort. And also, while partitioning those features into one-day issues, design pattern preferences can be made. You can choose what design patterns are appropriate, and then you have some of that design thinking of pair programming already baked into the issues. And then finally, you have to draw. I'm talking about diagrams. If it can't be drawn, it can't be built. But when you do draw a particular new design, new feature, new change, now instantly everybody who looks at it is going to have the same mental picture about what it should look like. If you don't draw something, then everyone is trying to translate from whatever text you have into an image in their own minds. And invariably, the different members of your team are going to have a different picture. So you definitely want to draw and use diagrams for any of your changes. All right, now that you've established quality, achieved stability, and you're increasing your speed, you want to maintain that. You want to focus on leading your team. Now, there's going to be different parts of the life cycle of a team. If you're building a new team, well, you have to form your team and equip them and go through some onboarding. Or anytime you add a team member to your team, you need to back up and do a little bit of forming and storming and norming so that you can get your team back to performing. We talk about that a lot in other videos. But every team, whether it's a team that works in some type of factory or manufacturing plant or a team in an office, every team needs maintenance, okay? And so leading your team, you need to strengthen and adjust your team over time. That's what maintaining something does. You've established a certain high level of performance. You need to maintain it. That takes intentionality. You want to constantly be designing the environment that your team works in, not only their physical environment, but how the information flows. You want to set vision, get everybody on the same page, set targets, challenge your team, and you want to create the process that your team works within. You want to establish priorities and show them the right direction. Not just point and say, go over there, but lead them, show them, do it with them, and make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to do. And for certain, I've said it multiple times, you want to measure your team. And remember, A players want the report card. They love getting the A because they're A players. So measure your team and celebrate the progress and celebrate. And then monitor the team and adjust over time. And I've already spoken about strengthening and adjusting your team, tuning the team. So I want to leave you with this. You have what it takes to lead your team. You can do it by implementing these principles, leading your team with a scorecard of relevant measures. You are going to empower your team to establish quality, achieve stability, and increase speed beyond what you've ever seen. I know you can do it, and we are here to guide. May God grant you wisdom as you lead your team. The role of an architect is a very important one. Leading your software team is so important these days. Only 17% of software projects are considered successes, but your team is going to be in that minority that is going to produce absolute successes of projects and software that's built and launched. You can do it. I know you can do it. I believe in you. Now go do your job. Thanks for being here on Programming with Palermo. God bless.
You've been watching Programming with Palermo, your primary place for highly productive programming protocols and practices. Remember, you have what it takes. You can do this. You are a programmer, formed by God Himself and called to this profession for a purpose. You can catch every episode at Palermo.network, as well as syndicated locations nationwide. We're so glad you tuned in. Until next time, may God bless you, and thanks for Programming with Palermo. Programming with Palermo has made a special arrangement with Marketplace Chaplains. Besides programming challenges, we all face issues in life where we need some help. If you'd like, you can call a chaplain confidentially. To speak with a gentleman, dial 512-923-8178. Or to speak with a lady, dial 512-619-6950. The show won't know you called, and everything is kept in strict secrecy. This is a free service, available if you or a friend need it.